Hola, konnichiwa, ni hao, privet, see ya. And for the remaining languages in the room, hello. After Anthony Laney's presentation yesterday, I wanted to do push-ups. I wanted to do sit-ups. I wanted to run around the room. His energy is so infectious. It inspired me to try and give my most energetic, passionate presentation I've ever done. Then the Young Bucks invited me to one last bar drink at the club downstairs last night, so I'm not sure that's quite going to happen, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I met many of you about 8 years ago in San Diego at the BIM conference, and we were those engineers that used ARCHICAD. And since then, I've had the opportunity to talk and do work with many of you, and as a matter of fact, I have 10 clients here today. They come from Nevada, California, Idaho, Colorado, New Jersey, and Florida. And I think that the process speaks for itself, the fact that I have clients that are spread across the nation. So for our clients, thank you so much. For those of you who have not had an opportunity to chat with yet, hello, we should talk. So I'm going to talk about my story, kind of the origin of where Riverstone came from, and that's important, but more importantly, I'm hoping that what our story is will inspire you to go back to your consultants and talk to them about coming into the world of BIM. I know a lot of you have consultants that don't even use 3D. They're still in the AutoCAD world, and we really need to bring everybody up to modeling in 3 dimensions. So I'm hoping that by the end of this, you'll have a takeaway and have a conversation with your consultant. So, how did it begin? A little before 2007, so about 2005, there's a ski resort in Donley, Idaho. It's called Tamarack. It was going to be the next Sun Valley. The company that I used to work for, they wanted to be the first engineers that were up there that everybody used for the high-end residential design. So they tasked me to go to a city called McCall and set up a satellite office. So I went knocking on the door of all the architects that were up there that did the work at the resort, and I found one thing in common. They all used ARCHICAD. And not only did they use ARCHICAD, but as you can see from the screen, they had an artistic value of what they wanted their drawings to look like. So not only was it a beautiful set of drawings, but it was linked. All the detail markers, they were intelligent. You changed the detail number, the page, it followed suit. So I went back to my principals and said, look at this, this is amazing. We really need to go down this path and take a look at it and see if we can use it in our business. And unfortunately, they started down the Revit path, so financially it didn't make very much sense. But I knew that there was something special about this program. So what I did was, when I started my business in 2007, I made a phone call to Chris Clark with BIM 6X, who's here today, and I had him come in my office and say, hey, what is this ARCHICAD about? I'm really interested in what it can do to see if I can use it for my business. And he started modeling the foundation, and then he rolled out the joist, and before he even finished that, I knew it was for us. I knew that that was the route we wanted to go. And so we adopted it and started using it right away. Shortly after that, I saw a webinar on TeamWorks 2.0. And when I noticed that the architects could reserve certain portions of the building, and I think at that time they were color coding it, and the engineer could reserve another part of the building, but more importantly, we were working in the same virtual building, the same model. I'm like, why are we not doing that? That totally makes sense. So I called up my clients and said, hey, we need to do TeamWorks 2.0. Well, apparently, if there's a TeamWorks 2.0, there was a TeamWorks 1.0, and they were not too thrilled about TeamWorks 1.0. Apparently, it was a little time-consuming, painful. It was not a good experience for them, so I could not convince them to jump on board, even though I saw the value in this from their previous experience. So John Magnan, who used to work with GRAPHISOFT, kind of heard about us and found out that we're trying to do this, and he came into our office. And told him what we're trying to do, said that our clients were apprehensive, And he said, well, why don't you set up your own BIM server in-house and use it in-house? And I said, that's a great idea. So we did that. So we were working on our models together with everybody in our office. And so we started going down that process and saw the value in it. Then I got the call. So we have a client in Sun Valley, and they had a project that they needed to get submitted in 2 weeks, or the code was going to change. Excuse me, there's that late night at that bar is kind of catching up with me here. Need a quick drink. Jake, you're in trouble, by the way. So they needed to get a project done in 2 weeks time period. And they said, hey, is there any way you can help us out? And I said, challenge accepted, because I knew that by working in the model in the BIM server in our office, we were going to be able to expedite the whole process. So the way we did it was we took everybody in our office on this one project. So I had one person working on roof framing. I had one person working on floor framing and foundations. We had another person doing lateral analysis and shear walls. And we got it done in 2 weeks time period. It was a 9,000 square foot house. Now, my clients that are out there now saying, why don't you do our projects in 2 weeks time period? There's a reason for that. There's a little bit of background. This particular client we'd already worked with before, so we had some details that we were able to pull over. But there was a lot of late nights. There was a lot of Red Bull, lack of sleep. So that's how we were able to do it. But the proof was in the pudding. And the fact that we were able to make this happen convinced me that that is the workflow that we needed to do with our clients. So we used that as a catapult to convince them to go down this path. Now, as you can see from this project here, this is the project in question. It's in beautiful Sun Valley, stunning. One of the challenges that we had, it's not shown up real well here, but this particular client requires L over 1,000 for their live load deflection criteria. So that's a 200+ pound beam in the floor. So it wasn't an easy project, but the fact that we had everybody focused and just on one project for 2 weeks straight allowed us to really expedite the process. So as a result, we were able to use that to convince our clients to trust us enough to get into the model. And the way we started is we set up our own BIM server and set everything up so that they didn't have to do it and go through the process. And once they got familiar with it and comfortable with it, they set up their own BIM servers. And it allowed us to branch out and work outside of our areas. As you can see from this map right here, that we're working all over the US. And we got, here's a British Virgin Islands, Spencer Brown, who's here today, is our client. We're working on a project over there, but we were able to do it through the BIM server and through the cloud. So, the fact that we're able to spread out like this is proof that it makes sense to do this type of workflow. So, right now, as she mentioned, we're on 27 different BIM servers, which in the beginning was a bit challenging because we have version 15 all the way to 22. Yes, I said version 15. I actually have some clients that are working on 15. It's very painful. But when you're working on so many different versions, the updating, had to be very coordinated. And we had one particular client that as soon as the new update came out, he automatically did it, which forced everybody else in the server to, have to bring their things up. And they'd be in the middle of a project and 11 o'clock at night and like, no, I'm not updating. So it was a bit of a challenge, but we figured it out and it's gotten so much better since then. And the technology is so much smoother that it allows us to really expand out and, work on so many different BIM servers. So, conventional structural drawings, 2D documents, 2D, it gives you all the information that you need. It tells you, what the sizes are. It tells you how to connect it and things like that. And it's important and it's useful. But what we're trying to do is expand more into 3D isometric drawings and detailing. And it kind of depends on the project. It depends on the budget. It depends on the client and what level that they model to. But by doing, this one detail here cuts out two-dimensional details that gives all the information in one shot. So the contractors really like seeing this because it gives them all the information they need and they don't have to flip through a bunch of different pages. So we have a combination of this and 2D right now. We found a few years ago that it costs more to model everything in the building. So we had to offer a 2D kind of option where we're still in the model, we're still collaborating with everything to scale, but we're able, for budget conscious projects, deliver something a little faster, but it still has some of the 3D elements, but we can do it at a little lower price. So we kind of have a combination of the two right now. Where we want to go is everything, modeled 3D, details 3D. That's a process, and again, it takes effort on the client's side to make sure that it's modeled correctly and in the right spot. But we really want to go down this path, and we think it's possible, especially with some of the new functions that we saw this week coming out down the road. So about 2 years ago, Victor and his team came all the way to Boise, Idaho, and they were picking our brains on what you guys saw earlier this morning regarding the analytical model and how it fits in the architectural model and the project model. So they came out for 2 days and asked us about how our workflow was and what value we saw in the analytical model, and obviously we gave them every feedback, the great feedback that we could on our side. But more importantly, I'm proud to say that he had the best steak of his life in Boise, Idaho. It's a hot rock fillet. It comes out on a rock, and you cut off your pieces, and you actually cook it on the rock. And we had 8 of them at this one table, so the temperature rose probably 30 degrees that day. We were in there, but he states today that that's the best steak he's ever had. So I'll hang my hat on that. It was good to talk to him about it. So now what do we do? So reimagine that the technology you saw this morning with the analytical model combined with the architectural model. As you can see, we got some complex areas, some complex posts here, and we don't need shear walls anywhere, especially in high seismic or high snow load country. So by being able to take that technology and instead of modeling it twice, have our analytical model in this model. Now it just saved us the time, as they mentioned earlier. A lot of times we have to go completely remodel everything for our structural model because the nodes aren't aligning, and it takes longer to fix all the links than it does to just start from scratch sometimes. So now what we can do is start here. So here's a project that we're doing in Redding, California. It's a medical services building, and a lot of curved walls, a lot of transitions, a lot of roof changes, and there's a lot of steel, tons of steel here. So now imagine if we had that technology before we started this project, when we put that beam in, I wouldn't have to reanalyze this or remodel this structure. And it's going to save us time. It's going to put out a better product, and it's going to increase that workflow and smooth transition to get from the very start of the design to a point where we got it not only analyzed, but hopefully send that information downstream to the contractors and try to put out a better product. And this is some of the inside portions, but you can see there's a lot going on. Nothing's straight. I mean, this is at an angle. This is at an angle. If we had that technology right before we started doing this, this project, it went really well, but it would have gone even faster. So here's a project that we did in Las Vegas, the Porsche dealership. We did it as a collaborative effort. And what I want you to take away is reimagine that, with the technology that GRAPHISOFT's coming out, allowing us to have the analytical model as part of the architectural model, and increasing the ability to go from the beginning to the end, we're going to have a better product. So if you have a consultant that is still in 2D, or if you have a consultant that is in Revit or not wanting to look at ARCHICAD at all, just have a conversation with them and tell them that the possibility of working with you seamlessly is going to increase their bottom line. It's going to give them the opportunity to work outside of their normal area, new projects, new clients, and I feel that it's going to put out just a better product overall. So I just thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.